Hi, how are you doing? My name is Kate Middleton and I'm a psychologist and a church leader, and I'm one of the directors of the Mind and Soul Foundation. And this is the first of 3 sessions that I'm going to get to spend with you thinking about some of the challenges of this pandemic season, this crazy time that we're living through. Because it's tough, isn't it? Everyone's circumstances are different, but almost everyone is under some kind of pressure. And right now I'm talking to a lot of people who are finding this moment really tough. And one of the reasons this time is so much more difficult than some of the ones we've been through before is just how long this has been going on for. You know, we headed into lockdown way back in March 2020 and we were facing it like it was an acute short-term crisis, like a crazy moment that we would just get through together. But now, all these months later, we find ourselves still in the middle of pandemic and actually in a really tough stage. And we're realizing we don't know how much longer this may go on. We're having to recognize this is a longer term season. So we're having to work out not just how to get through, but how to do some kind of ordinary life in these extraordinary circumstances. How do you get back to something like normal when things are so not normal in the world around you? And there's 2 main issues that we're facing, therefore. And the first is stress, because stress isn't just about distress. Stress is anything that requires your brain or your body to act, to react, to adjust, to adapt and respond to stuff going on around you. And in this season, we've universally experienced a rise in our baseline stress levels just because so much has been changing all the time. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, listen, I have never been so bored. How can I be stressed? You know, if you're furloughing, if you've been stuck in isolation, or if you've been shielding at home for months now. But actually, your brain uses the rhythm and routine of everyday life to keep your baseline low. It's like climbing a wall when you know where all the handholds are and you can just do it without thinking. Pandemic life is like climbing a wall, but all the handholds are gone and you're starting from scratch. And the minute you have worked out how to climb this new wall, it changes. There's new boulders, new obstacles to get round. Or a handhold you used to reach for isn't an option anymore because the rules and the restrictions have changed. So you're constantly working out how to adapt. And you're trying to do that while holding positivity, which is increasingly difficult. Because the longer this goes on, the more exhausted your mind gets, just because of that constant bombardment, the relentless demand. You know, so many people are saying to me right now, what is wrong with me? Why am I so tired? Do you have that feeling when you wake up and just think, oh man, I just want to go back to sleep and just stay there for a long time? And the reason you're so tired is this is tiring. It's really, really demanding for your mind. And everything in your brain is trying to get you to find a way to escape, to remove yourself from that relentless demand. Your brain needs a break. So the more you're trying to focus harder, concentrate better, multitask, think creative, stay positive, deal with all the things you're juggling right now, your mind is telling you, actually, no, just stay in bed, hide away, do nothing, talk to no one, stay away from screens. And so we're constantly fighting with our own minds. And the second challenge that we're facing in this time is despair. You know, gosh, despair is that toughest of human experiences. It's just an overwhelming, energy-sapping sense of futility. It's that feeling like nothing you do has any purpose or impact. Everything is just hopeless and bleak. You can't change anything. It's pointless. Despair makes you want to hide away, to isolate yourself. It's a horrible combination of emotions and thoughts and even a physical feeling that comes over you. Did you know you have a region in your brain that triggers despair? And it's all to do with how much you feel out of control. You see, the need to feel like you can have some control over your surroundings, over your world, over the situation that the people you love find themselves in. That's so important. It's an intrinsic need for human beings. But in this time of global pandemic and lockdown and restrictions and infection, we face so much that we cannot control. And so many things that have affected the things or the people that matter to us. And in those moments when we become aware of the futility of our trying to change things, when difficult things are happening and we can't alter them or escape from the situation or rescue the people we care about, despair is kind of designed to make you hunker down and stay safe. But of course, in situations like this, it makes things worse. It keeps us from things that could make things better. And it interferes with our ability to pull together and do this well. And interestingly, and perhaps unusually, in this season, in global pandemic, which is kind of unique, we actually can't change the things that we're facing. We can't find a way out of the wider context. Maybe there's little things you can change about your world, but no matter how clever you are, you cannot solve global pandemic. So actions that usually might feel futile or negative and maybe even fuel this sense of despair, stuff designed just to kill time, to get us through yet another day in lockdown. Actually, these things in this moment are some of the most positive things you can do. So it requires a real reframing of our mind. In this season, the skills we need are about sustaining, about carrying yourself through, keeping yourself afloat. It's not about rowing for shore because you can't. What we need to learn to do in this moment is to tread water until the tide turns, to keep ourselves and our loved ones afloat until our situation improves, because it will. We've just got to get through this winter, this tough time. So what I want to talk about today is the antidote to despair, and the thing that can sustain us for however long this does last. It's hope. And I want to share some thoughts from human psychology, but also from the ancient wisdom of the New Testament. And it's this really interesting letter that was written by a guy called Paul to some of the earliest Christians. It's in Romans, and it's chapter 5, verses 3 to 5. This is how the Passion Translation puts what Paul wrote in the original Greek. And he says this, he says, "Even in times of trouble, we have a joyful confidence, knowing that our pressures will develop in us patient endurance. And patient endurance will refine our character, and proven character leads us back to hope. And this hope is not a disappointing fantasy, because we can now experience the endless love of God." And if you look at the ancient Greek that Paul wrote here, literally what he says is that when we're forced to remain under a difficult situation, times when we're stuck or caught or we can't change things, we just have to live with something that's tough, that grows something in us. It actually changes us. It develops our character, and something is released, something about our resilience. It's like in that pressure and pain, we can find something really unexpected, possibility, and maybe even potential, something about ourselves that we haven't tapped into before that grows. And that leads us somewhere really unexpected. Even in the difficulties of that moment, it leads us back to hope. And it's really interesting alongside what we know about human psychology, because there's another aspect of the way your brain works that is incredibly important and valuable in times like these. It helps you cope with adversity and challenge and change, and it triggers good things which help you manage those moments better. But really importantly, it also actively inhibits and switches off that region that triggers despair. But what's really important is that the ability to harness this network in your mind, which is often called the hope circuit, this is something you learn. So as you deliberately and proactively put things into place that trigger this circuit, your ability to use it grows. Your brain gets better at harnessing this power and potential. You get better at holding hope, not just now, but in the future. learning to use this part of your mind better, building these things into your life in this season could also grow your resilience and release a greater potential for you in the future. It's why people who've been through tough times then get better at holding challenges of seasons later on in their life. So much of the wisdom we've heard in this moment has been from people who've been through tough times earlier in their life, older generations with some wisdom and tips and secrets to share. I know it's super annoying sometimes when folk go on about how things are character building, but that is basically what Paul is saying, and it's what human psychology teaches us. So how do we trigger the hope circuit? I want to talk about 3 things. So 3 things we can remember, we can prioritize, we can build into our daily rhythm and routine in this moment for ourselves and for those that we love and support. 3 things that will also, though, potentially change us, develop us, and increase our capacity to push into tough stuff in the future, to step out of our comfort zones, to grow our influence and our ability to carry hope and good stuff to people who need it the most. The first one, then, is productivity. So productivity built into our human need to feel like we're achieving something, we're getting somewhere. It's so hard just killing time. And we want to feel like we are effective, and especially if life is overwhelming and you're juggling loads right now, that may be the last thing you feel. I don't know about you, but for me right now, balancing home life, homeschooling, work, trying to keep up with people, deadlines, just trying not to miss anything important. Sometimes I feel like I've never failed at so much simultaneously in any stage of my life. So productivity can help. Think about something you can do that will make you feel a sense of achievement. Completing something, restoring order somewhere, feeling a sense of accomplishment and control. It doesn't need to be brilliant. It could be getting some chores done, tidying something, cleaning something, sorting a drawer, doing your ironing, restoring calm from chaos. If you're living in a space that feels as chaotic and out of control as your wider world, then changing something about that will help. Or you could think about crafts or Lego models or doing a puzzle, something that takes chaos and disorder and brings it together into something complete and much more tidy. Or maybe it's something that you do anyway, but you normally wouldn't even register that you're achieving. Make things measurable, write a list, tick things off. And it doesn't have to be super big. Some days the little things, taking a shower, getting yourself dressed, brushing your hair, these are things to achieve that you might not bother to do if you're feeling really flat and low. In fact, productivity is the first thing on my list because these are the things, they're like the first step into triggering your hope circuit. They demand the least of us. There are little things you can do that will harness this ability to trigger the good feelings the hope circuit can cause. So if you've had a terrible day or you're really struggling right now or just doing something small feels hard, give something in this whole productivity area, give it a go, even if it just feels like going through the motions, because at the very least it will lift your mood enough that maybe you can try the next thing. Maybe it will enable you to do something else. So that's my first. Number 2 on the list is people. Connecting with people is so important. It's one of your basic human needs. But it's really tricky right now. Finding ways to connect will lift your mood, but it takes some energy. So we need to plan this one. We need to think ahead. Think how, when, and who. How and when, because you might need to think about some creativity. Are you going to make a phone call or get back on flipping Zoom? I know we're all fed up of it, but that is the way. Or maybe you can schedule a one-to-one walk or something. When? Because you need to save up some energy. It's no use planning an amazing big Zoom quiz extravaganza and then getting to it on Friday night and just being so exhausted after a week of work and everything that you're doing that you can't face it. So think about when you're going to do it. If you're having a rough day, you might need to do some productivity tricks to lift your mood and help you feel that sense of motivation so that you can even face doing this one. And then think about who. Because in this season, there's a phenomenon called friendship funneling. It's that tendency we've all had because this has been tough and long to just gradually trim down who we're keeping in touch with until you're left with like the few really key people. And that's good because the key people matter. But most of the colour in your connection world comes from the people further out. You know, the peripheral people who you just hang out with, you do life with, you have laugh with, people you work with and play with. You know, who is there who you haven't seen in ages, who you normally say hello to like every day or at least every couple of days, but you've now not seen in months? Who do you need to reconnect with in this time? Think about people. And the third thing on my list is positive emotions. Now, let's be clear, in lockdown, there's been a lot of positivity. And in a short-term crisis, that's absolutely perfect because that's what you need to do. You need to find a way to keep your head down, just get on with it. You can deal with the tricky stuff and the processing and the emotions and the loss and the grief and all of that stuff later. But remember, a short-term acute crisis is not where we are now. This is a longer-term season, and that doesn't work as your only strategy because you get exhausted. And the more tired you get, the more that in order to keep that up, you have to effectively switch off your entire emotional self. So you end up just not feeling anything. You lose the good stuff too. So it might feel counterintuitive, but in order to release your ability to feel positive stuff, you might need to find ways to express and process some of the difficult stuff of this time, the trickier stuff. And we're going to talk about that more in the next 2 sessions that are coming. But this stuff really matters because experiencing positive emotions matters. It's part of the way your brain was designed. You know, there's an ancient Hebrew verse. It's from the Old Testament, Nehemiah 8, verse 10. And it says, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." And that word that's translated as strength literally means it's your fortress, it's a tower, it's a place of protection, it's where you retreat to in life's stormy times, in life's battle times. It's such good psychology because positive emotions and good times, they're not some kind of selfish hedonistic indulgence. They're crucial, particularly if you're supporting other people, because you need to keep yourself going. You need to find a way to sustain your energy, your motivation. If you go under, so do all the people you support. So those moments you think of yourself, the moments you're self-compassionate, the moments you look after yourself and care for yourself and do some of the things you're doing all the time for other people, for yourself, so that you feel better. The things that make you smile or laugh or just feel a sense of relief for a moment, those are the things that sustain you in the midst of so much that's so difficult. So pursue those positive things, prioritize them, and don't feel guilty about them. Let yourself enjoy them. And finally, I just want to finish with a last word about hope. Because I've talked a lot about human psychology and that's really good stuff and it's important in this time. But Paul's letter to the Romans talks about a bigger, better source of hope. It talks about an ultimate hope that thankfully doesn't rely on our human cleverness. And that's so important. You know, so much of this season has been about our awareness and our anxiety because we realise that we are on the limits of our human ability. We're on the limits of our human cleverness, the limits of our human control, the limit of our human capacity. And the question is, when you reach your limit, the end of yourself, what is there? Is there nothing? Or is that a space you can tap into something bigger and better and brighter than yourself? You know, Psalm 39 verse 7 says this is the New Living Translation. It says, "So Lord, where do I put my hope? My only hope is in you." And that's what Paul means when he talks about a hope that will not disappoint, the endless love of God. What if coming to the end of yourself is about learning to harness your skill, your ability to reach out to a better space, a space where God is? What if his power and his cleverness, his capacity, and his bigger, better control, what if that is what we need to use to sustain us, to root ourselves in those things in this season? Because while so many of the human stories we're hearing right now feel hopeless or uncertain or anxiety provoking, there is a bigger story playing out here, and it's God's story spoken over God's world, and it is one of hope. This is not the end of your story. This is not the end of humanity's story. We will get through this season. So our strategy can be of treading water and waiting for the tide to turn, because we are rooted in that bigger hope that comes from God. Let's take a moment just to pray. Father God, I want to pause in this moment and just think of everyone who's watching and recognize that truth, Father, that when we reach the end of ourselves, it is not the end. So for anyone watching right now who is struggling with that sense of despair, struggling with feeling that they don't know what to do, struggling with exhaustion or wondering how they're going to keep going, I want to pray for them right now. And I pray for you, if that's you in this moment, if that's what you're facing, that the heavenly supernatural hope that comes from God, that might be your sustaining energy, that hope that does not disappoint. And I speak the peace of the Heavenly Father over you and the people you love and protect to sustain you and hold you safe in this season. May that hope and love guard your heart and mind in this moment and in the days and weeks that come. In the name of Jesus.